he established that we should read, we just read about Parshat Kitavo before Rosh Hashanah. Why? The Gemara says that tichlet shana b'kiloteh, that the year should end and all of it with all of its curses, and start a new year with the blessings, a new era, a new beginning. We should read all these curses to know that they're over now. We're starting a new year. The question is asked: what is to read the curses? So, why do you have to mention the curses? Why do you have to try to scare us? It's trying to make us afraid before Rosh Hashanah, just to scare us. There's explained that in those curses, towards the end, in chapter 28, verse 47, it says the reason why all these curses befall you, will come upon you. You mentioned on Shabbat, right? That you serve God without joy. Not that you didn't serve God, but you serve God without the joy, without the identification with the mitzvah. Doing it some rote, and that's not what God wants. And that brings the curses. It's so strong, it's so important, so significant that all these curses come. And therefore, when you read it before Rosh Hashanah, you should understand that that's the reason for the curses, and therefore come back to the level of serving out of joy, out of happiness, out of appreciation. And then once you do out of joy, then there'll be no curses, and then the year will end. Then the year will end, so to speak, with it'll be end of all the curses. The joy, the motivation in keeping the mitzvot. We mentioned that there's different levels of performance of the mitzvot. There's performance out of yirat ha'onesh, the fear of punishment. And there is the level of out of ahava, out of love, out of appreciation, that I'm participating in something so great and being able to do the will of God and bring good to the world, as we'll see. That is there's a big difference in that motivation. The Rambam, in the laws of lulav, we mentioned this right on Shabbat. The end of the laws of lulav, and talks about the four species, and he talks about the joy that we do at the end of Sukkot, the simchat bereshoiva, the joy, the singing and the dancing, and especially the rabbis should be dancing and jumping because they appreciate the grandeur. And then the Rambam says in general about joy, the joy that a person does, basiyata mitzvah, when he does the mitzvot, and loving the God that he commanded them, avodah gdolahi, this is a great work, a great service. Either great meaning difficult, challenging, it's not such an easy thing, or also great, the value, the significance of serving God out of joy is a great and important level. And anyone who prevents himself from that joy is worthy of being punished. And he brings down the verse from what we read on Shabbat, the Parsha, the curses, but he brings down this verse, that you didn't serve God, all these curses because you didn't serve God out of joy and a good heart. On that, the Magid Mishnah, or the commentaries, the classic commentary on the Rambam, says the main thing is that it's lo ra'ui la'adam, ein ra'ui la'adam la'asot mitzvot mitzat she'em chova alav. One should not perform the mitzvot as some obligation, some yoke, some terrible, awesome burden upon him. It's indeed an obligation. But if you, as we'll see, as you appreciate the meaning, the value, the significance, it's a wonderful obligation. How lucky we are. We say in the morning before the Psuke de Zimra, Ashreinu ma tov chelkenu, ma na'im gorenu. How lucky, how praiseworthy that this is our portion. That our lot is connected to the will of God that changes the world, elevates all of mankind. How lucky we are, this obligation. The obligation is a privilege. But someone who does it without understanding that, it's just he does it, it's given, it's a fact, you have to do this or else. It's an obligation. He has to do so, and he's anus. He's like coerced. That is not the way that you're supposed to perform the mitzvot. God doesn't want robots. Doesn't just no. The important thing is to do it. I have my list. I put on tefillin. I keep kosher. I put a V. I did my job. The Gemara says in Sotah, what is a chasid shoteh? A foolish, as a quote unquote righteous person. What is my obligation, and I'll do it. Just tell me what I have to do. Let me get it over with. and finished, and let me go back to what I like to do. As if Torah is against his life, is suppressing his life. But what can you do? There's someone that you believe, which is a level, that you believe in God that rewards and punishes, so you do in order to get by and to avoid punishment. But that's not the righteous, the worthy level. But rather one should be happy in doing it, mitzvah tov, doing good for the sake of good. An altruistic person does an ideal, even it's difficult, it's challenging, but he wants to do good, he's happy doing good, that's an idealist, right? Someone selfish and worried about himself, then everything is a yoke and it's something difficult that he doesn't understand, like you said who said that? Oh, he's not here today. But on Friday night when he said how it's not something external, these aren't some coerced external mitzvot that we have to do or obligations, arbitrary thing. God says, do this. Just I wanted to see that you have to succumb to my orders. But rather the most beautiful thing that adds life, more life, super life, how to connect your life, how to fulfill your life, how to bring your life to its full potential. So God, the doctor, tells us what to eat, how to eat properly, to be healthy, to be really so physically healthy and spiritually healthy, and to give our gift to all of reality. So if you understand that, you do the good for the sake of the good, and you do the truth for the sake of the truth. And it'll be easy in his eyes, all the difficulties. It's a challenge. Some things are difficult. It's not easy. But if you know what the value and the meaning, then it's not a begrudgingly a chore that you have to do. And you're doing what you were created to do. It's the most natural thing for you. It's not something, again, external, outside of me, which again, there's God, there's Torah, there's religion, and there's life. And they're separate and they're opposing, and God forbid, as if the Torah is against my life, and therefore you have this feeling of, it's a burden, like a burden. But if you appreciate, you understand, this is what I created for, this is my being healthy, the doctor, the super doctor, the God that tells you how he created and how you can live your maximum life. It's the most joyous thing. If Yismach v'yagil, be happy and joyous. The Rambam, I mentioned to you, but I'll read it to you a little bit inside, the chapter 10 in the Laws of Tshuva, the last chapter, and he talks about this topic. Can you think, what do you mean Tshuva? I'll just do what I'm supposed to do, follow the laws, like I said, what's my obligation, and I'll do it, let me get it over with. He says, a person should not say, I will fulfill the mitzvot of the Torah and occupy myself in its wisdom, learning Torah, keeping the mitzvot and learning Torah, in order to receive all the blessings which are contained within it. The Torah does have blessings. It tells you I'll be blessing physically and spiritually. Or in order to merit the life of the world to come. It's a very spiritual gift. He offers you, if you do the mitzvot, you get this reward, the world to come. It sounds great, but no, it is not worthy to do it for that. Similarly, I will separate myself, right? I avoid doing the sins which the Torah warned against. Why? Not because I don't want to do bad. I don't want to hurt people. Not because the policeman's watching me and he won't put me in jail. I don't want to kill it. I don't want to do bad. I will separate myself from the sins. Why? So I'll be saved from all the curses contained in the Torah, or that my soul will be not cut off from the life of the world to come. It is not fitting to serve God in this manner. As we mentioned in the Path of the Just, chapter 19, someone who serves God in order to sit in the front row and to see God in the future, in the Olam Haba, in the world to come, and all these gifts. And he says it's hard to say that that's totally wrong, but it's far from the ideal. Because ultimately he is serving no one else other than himself. What's in it for me? What do I get out of it? Benefit? I'll do it. I'll get punished if I don't. The policeman's watching me, so I'll avoid doing what he tells me not to do. But if I could avoid him and could run away from him, even better. But again, this is a level that someone believes in God that rewards and punishes. Someone doesn't believe, hey, I don't believe in all this stuff. I'll do what I want. But an idealistic person that believes and knows that there is a system, there is a divine, a creator of the world, but his level of understanding that is very limited, and he serves him only because there's someone there, and I'm here, and he tells me what to do, or else. It is not fitting to serve God in this manner. But the person whose service is motivated by these factors is considered one who serves out of fear. He's not on the level of the prophets or of the wise. But rather, and this is what the Magid Mishnah, the commentary on the Rambam in the Laws of Lulav said, but here the Rambam, the source, rather, again, what should be, is he does what is true because it is true, and ultimately good will come because of it. There is reward. The question is, what's your motivation? God will reward people, and you do get good, and there is a world to come, and there is punishment, but not something external. But nevertheless, Is that what you're focusing on? Is that what you're interested in? What I get out of it? Or the story you told, Nachon, on Shabbat? About the Vilna Gaon? No. Yeah. Remember, you told the story about the Vilna Gaon.
Yes.
Right? Doing it for the sake of the good. I'm not doing it for the sake of the reward. That's not what interests me. I want to do God's will, knowing that that is what is absolute and good and perfection for all of creation, all of existence. I want to do good. I want to, like I said, an idealistic, altruistic. And that's what Torah was. That's what Torah is. Torah isn't just to me. Judaism is just to, I don't know, you get your private customs and laws and to get some brownie points in the future. But God wants to make us what we're supposed to be, the image of God, to be good. Tov Hashem lakol, like we say in Ashrei, God is good for all. To emulate God, to be God, is to be godly, is to be good, and to be cared about others, and the more collective understanding of the good for mankind, all of existence. So he does good for the sake of good, and ultimately the gift, the reward will come, but that's not the motivation. The Rambam writes, goes on, just skip around here. The rabbis say, desire his commandments greatly, the verse in Psalms and Tehillim. Desire his commandments and not the reward which comes from his commandments. Later, I'm just skipping around just to summarize here. He said this level is not so simple to receive. It's not like you start learning, beginning of teaching Torah, you're learning Torah, you already get to this level. Once at the beginning, when you teach children, you should teach them to serve out of fear in order to receive a reward. As their knowledge grows and their wisdom increases, the secret should be revealed to them slowly, bit by bit. They should become accustomed to this concept gradually until they grasp it, know it, and begin serving God out of love. It's a level. So I mentioned to you that there's the introduction to the Rambam. It's very famous, important introductions. He has a commentary to the Mishnah, and he wrote introductions to certain parts. To Kodshim, the introduction to Pirkei Avot is called the Shmona Prakim, the 8 famous chapters. They're called Shmona Prakim. It's the introduction of the Rambam to Pirkei Avot. And he has also an introduction to the 11th chapter, the last chapter of Sanhedrin, which talks about Olam Haba. And there are very important principles. And there he brings down that when you teach, when a child is brought before a teacher to learn Torah, you tell him you motivate him to learn Torah because you'll get some gift. The Rambam says, give you nuts and figs or a little honey. So the child studies not because of the essence of the study. For the child has no comprehension of that. What's the intrinsic value of study, of learning Torah, of keeping Torah? He just wants, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I just want to get the chocolate bar. These delicacies are more important to him than the actual study. Later he gets older, the intellect more develops. Like I said later, I mentioned, he wanted a bicycle, and then he realizes a bicycle was not the end of the world. He'll learn Torah in order to get money. He'll get money. Money makes the world go round. Right? It's the most important thing in the world. So he'll learn Torah and do the mitzvot in order to get money, the reward. But again, each thing the Torah is secondary, it's just a means, it's just the necessary obstacle the pill you have to swallow to get to what you really want. What's important each time is the figs, the honey, the chocolate, whatever, the bicycle, in my example. The Rambam doesn't talk about the bicycle. And he talks about money, and then he talks about honor. Money isn't so important, but the honor. You learn Torah, you become the rabbi, a scholar, they'll stand up. Wow, this is the honor you'll get. That is, so he studies for the honor. That, and get it, the important thing is the honor. He doesn't understand yet the significance of Torah in and of itself. Until he even gets to the higher level that even the physical world, all the amenities of this world and the physical gifts, even money and honor, are meaningless. The eternal good of the world to come. Like he says in chapter 10, I'll serve out of to get the reward in the world to come. But again, the motivation is for that important thing in his eyes is the gift, the reward, even being very spiritual, and he has to have a high level of faith to realize that that's more important than anything else in this world. So that's what he's searching for. And he'll do whatever he has to do to get that. So it's learn Torah, I'll keep the mitzvot in order to get that. But again, it's always that level, but he's supposed to grow more and more until he reaches the point of understanding the intrinsic value of doing good for the sake of good, doing God's will. And then the Rambam says how to get there. One can only love God as an outgrowth of the knowledge with which he knows him. Like it says in, I think David says, Shlomo, in Diber HaYamim, it says, Da Elokei Avicha v'avdehu. Know your God, know the God of your father. You should know God and serve him. First, the knowledge of God, the wisdom, the connection, the grandeur, his endless understanding and the appreciation of, we don't know God, we can't define, it's beyond any human contemplation, but you have to strive to more the knowledge of God. You read the Guide for the Perplexed, the Rambam, the whole thing is the knowledge of God and the fixing of your characteristics, your traits, the moral perfection and the intellectual perfection. And what's the height of the intellectual perfection? The knowledge of God, the wisdom of what is, of the absolute truth, the source of all, the greatness, the grandeur, the ideals of Kook elevate. Yes.
So it's correct to say that the reward is related in the way how we serve Hashem. So if we serve Hashem based on fear, we have a small reward. Out of love, it's a bigger reward.
Ken, the Gemara says in Yuma that the tshuva out of fear fixes the sins, so to speak, erases them, and the tshuva out of ahava turns them into merits. Because you have to explain how that works. But all the bad things you did, and now you appreciate. Now what you're doing tshuva is not because of what I'll suffer. If I, for all the punishments I'll get, for all things, so I have remorse on what? Again, on my punishment. No. Oh, the greater the sins you did, and the reason for your remorse is not because what I'll suffer from it. Because how could I do things bad against the universe, bad against God's will of good, preventing the fulfillment of this super ideal of good for all of creation? That's what bothers me. And that's a merit. Now, the more you remorse, not because of your private fear or a private not benefit or the opposite, deficit, but what you'll be punished, but you're doing it out of this idyllic thing, that itself turns it for bad. But nevertheless, there's other sources that talk about the reward is greater, the higher level of what the Rambam says here, serving God. But again, that's not your motivation. If you do it for love in order to get a higher reward, no, that's not out of love. Out of love is that the reward or punishment is not it's not the motivation whatsoever. That's not what you're worried about. You're concerned with how can I do good? How can I bring good to the world? We'll hopefully elaborate as we go on. But how do you get to this level of loving God? If it's this God that He's there, you just believe in something above. That's this super policeman that is immortal, eternal. He's watching everything, and I can't run away from Him. If that's your level of faith, of understanding of God, very childish, first grade level, God is a guy with a white beard and a cane, and a stick that will beat you if you lightning bolts if you desecrate Shabbat and people. And that's the level you leave God at. Everything else you intellectual develop, you learn math, physics, and your level of God, understanding of God, is remain on the kindergarten level of this guy with a beard that will beat you up if you don't do what he says. Then the highest level you can get to is only serving out of fear. I fear this lofty, transcending, whatever that means, being that I don't understand. I just have to listen to him. But the more you love of God is the appreciation of the ideals, the good, how amazing, how lucky we have to be part of this too. So that depends on your knowledge of God. And that's the essence of Torah, the knowledge of God, what it says in the future, in Yeshayahu chapter 11, that the Mashiach, the Messianic era, when the knowledge of God will fill the earth. The knowledge of God, this connection of godliness, this energy of good, of super holiness and justice and truth will fill all of our being, all of our existence. It's a different world now. Not everyone's out for himself and competition and jealousy and hatred and wars. And it's a world where this knowledge of God, this wisdom of goodness permeates all. But that takes a study. That's Rav Kook over and over again elaborates how the need, especially this generation, to study the aspect of Torah that deals with those divine ideals. What is it? What's behind the do's and don'ts? There's two levels of Torah. We mentioned in the Gemara in Sukkah, page 28, how there's I don't go through the whole thing again, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that he knew everything, everything of Torah, and he gives all the details, a list of his knowledge, his wisdom, and he also knew the big thing and the small thing. The Gemara says, what do you mean he knew that? What's the big thing and the small thing? The small thing is the Havayot Abai V'Rava. The small things is the polemics, the back and forth, give and take of Torah, meaning the details of do's and don'ts. So what's the big thing? If that's the small thing, right? The Gemara, the whole Talmud is full of these give and take of discussions of halacha. So what's the big thing? Yeah, it says Maseh Bereshit, Maseh Merkava. In other words, the divine ideals of creation. How the world was created and where is it going? What does God has in store for the world? In other words, there's the aspect of Torah. The rabbis call it the bread of Torah and the wine of Torah. the body of Torah and the gufei Torah and the neshama of Torah, the soul of Torah. There's the do's and don'ts. There's the body of Torah, what to do, how to act. But then there's the world of ideals, what these actions affect, what they bring about, how they influence the world. We'll get to this soon, hopefully, to elaborate on that topic of that wisdom, the aspect of Torah wisdom that is so necessary at this time. The Rav Kook, the analysis, so to speak, of the generation, this diagnosis that this generation, towards the redemption, is more idyllic souls, people that want good. They want good for the sake of good. And if Judaism is presented or misrepresented to them as if it's only this, do this or else. You just do this, like other religions. We have our laws, our customs, do this, don't ask questions, just... So then again, Torah becomes, so to speak, outside of life, separate from life, even opposing life. It's a suppressing, oppressing religion that you have to do, like other religions indeed, man-made laws that you have to separate from the physical world. This world is separation of church and state. But here our goal, that the God that created the world created the soul and the body, the heaven and the earth. The Torah that guides this world not to avoid this world, not to diminish worldliness and life. But if Torah is understood or misunderstood because of lack of study, of understanding, that there's Torah, there's religion, there's what God tells you to do, and there's what I want to do. We do have an evil inclination. We do have a animal instinct, so to speak, drive to things that aren't good, but not because the good is something against us. Is against the bad side of us, the lower side of us, to how to be a real human being, how to live up to our full potential, our humanity, to be lofty and holy and spiritual and good and just and loving and kindness and giving. So that takes study. Without the study, like I said, that understanding the separation of life and Torah, then even if you keep it, so either you leave the Torah, which is what takes place often, that people see Judaism as something nothing to do with. I want ideals, values, communism, socialism, to fix the world, fix mankind, and you tell me not to mix my meat and milk spoons. Or people that still say, oh, this is what I continue, my father did it, grandfather, or I'm worried about punishment, so I'll still do it. I'll do what it says. But again, it's this angst, this frustration, this it's foreign religion that laws that I have to keep. But to get the love of God and love of the mitzvot, doing the mitzvot out of love, takes a lot of study. The love of God in Hebrew, according to the knowledge that you understand Him, the wisdom, the grandeur of the godliness, the goodness, the ideals of God. And that's what this generation needs, like I started to say, that they're ready for, prepared for, and demand and will be satisfied with nothing less than the bigger understanding of Torah. What's the reason for all this? What's the goal? What's the ideals? That's what the rabbis call tamei mitzvot. We mentioned ta'am, right, from the taste, to give a taste, a flavor to the mitzvot. We don't do the mitzvot because of the flavor. If we don't have that flavor, we don't understand why, I'm not going to do it. The ones I understand, I'll do. If not, not. No, it's unconditional. We know, even the ones we don't understand, we know that this is from the Father in heaven, the God that wants good, it's the absolute source of good. So even if our limited understanding of the world doesn't understand how this affects and brings good to the world, but we know that our Father, like the child, goes to the doctor, right? He takes the child, the baby, to the doctor comes with this big needle and he turns to his father, help me, save me, and the father just holds him tight. I thought you loved me, I thought you cared about me, you're on his side, whatever. He doesn't understand how this is for his own good. It's out of love. It's not because God, the Father, hates him. So certain things we don't understand. But we do what God says, understand or not understand. But God wants us to know God and serve Him. God wants us more and more to identify, to understand the wisdom, the grandeur, the ideals behind the Torah, behind the mitzvot. That's part of Torah, like I said. That's the essence of Torah, the deeper level of Torah that discusses and reveals and exposes these the ideals behind it, how it affects not just you personally, your maximization of your life, but of mankind, of all of existence, all the worlds and dimensions, how it affects. We'll talk about that Nefesh HaChaim, the famous book by the student of the Vilna Gaon of Chaim Volozhin, how the deeper significance of the efficacy, the effect on the world and the world, all of existence. That we'll hopefully get to. But without understanding, without study, you're left with this do or else, this fear of punishment. The best I'm worried about myself, so I don't want to get punishment. The joy. So also from the parsha we read on Shabbat, that we did mention on Friday night. We talked about that verse that if you serve God without joy, then that's the reason for all the curses. But the beginning of the parasha, Vayaki Tavo, right? When you come to the land, and the word is Vahaya, Vayaki Tavo. And the rabbis explain Vahaya, there's Vayehi, there was, and there's Vahaya, and it was. In English, I don't know the difference, how to grammatically. But in Hebrew, there's what's called the Vav HaHipuch, the Vav that makes the opposite. Yehi is the future. The future is something like Rav Yehuda Kook, Rav Kook's son used to explain to us, that Yehi is like the future. The future is optimistic, is life can be maybe problematic now, but we dream of a futuristic good. Vayehi turns the future to the past. That's very depressing. Heard what your future, and they say, no, it's all gone now. It's over in the past. And the opposite, Haya is was. Right? It was. Vahaya turns the past into the future. The past that was over and maybe bad. Now it's more, turns that into something that's futuristic good. So that's what's called, the rabbis say, this is the voice, how do you say, the language of joy. And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, on these words, they're based on that, says, Amar Bahaya Lashon Simcha. Haya, it was, and it will be, or when you come to Israel, to the land. Bahaya is Lashon Simcha. This language is the wording of Simcha. Why? To tell you, She'ein lismoach b'yeshivat Eretz. But there's no joy except the sitting in Eretz Yisrael, dwelling in Eretz Yisrael. The full joy, the true joy, is by this being in Eretz Yisrael. So much so, the rabbi said, in the Zohar, and it's brought down in Bamidbar, that there's two verses in Tehillim. One says, Ivdu Hashem b'simcha, chapter 100, we say, serve God out of joy. And another verse, Ivdu Hashem b'yirah, serve out of fear. So, which is it? So the rabbis say, it's not a contradiction. Depends where you are. Out of fear, it's when you're outside the land of Israel, and out of love, when you're in Eretz Yisrael. Because outside the land, it's, as we know, the spiritual collective life force of the Jewish people is not coming down and beating down and unifying all the Jewish people to be one source of what do we say on Shabbat? We say the Mincha, Goy Echad Ba'aretz, one nation in the land. This unifying force that, like the nucleus that caused all the electrons, whatever, are now centered and connected. What it says in Yeshayahu 42, Noten neshama la'amaleha, I give the neshama to the nation upon this land. The neshama, that God created the world so that this spiritual life force comes down and infuses life to all the Jews living in this certain geographical location that God created with a certain holiness that enables this unity of the nation to live, to express the unity of God in this world, right? What we say in Mincha, Ata echad v'shimcha echad mikam chai yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. You are one, and your name, your ideal is expressed. There's oneness of unity, of harmony, of all of existence. It's blessing of good to all. How is it revealed? Through the Goy Echad, the Jewish people. The rabbis say, where? Ba'aretz, in the land of Israel. Here we are one, the rabbis say, not outside of it. So nevertheless, outside of it, it's like this unifying magnetic force is not revealing itself, the body is now fractured and scattered, each one on its own, each one separate. There's no ideal there to sanctify the holy Polish government and army and economy. There, the spirituality remain only with, like Judaism is limited to the 4 cubits of halakha, what the Gemara says in Brachot, page 8a. The 4 cubits of individual private domain, sanctifying your house and your kitchen and your learning Torah privately. There's all these other ideals of nationhood and sovereignty and kingdom and in the physical world in totality. Life, in other words, are separate from Torah, outside of Torah. That's not for us, that's politics, that's God. We have Judaism, as if, again, like I said before, this equation or misnomer, but in reality, in the exile, that's what takes place, this tragedy of the separation of Torah and life, temple and state. Judaism now is in the temple, in your private level. State, outside, life, total, like the fullness of man's endeavors are outside of Torah, and even opposing. You have to stay away from that. You have to retreat, and we have to. In the exile, you have to take a tactical retreat because those things are threatening. They're not holy, they're not sanctified. In the future, they will be. From the sanctification of Israel, will sanctify all of creation. All of mankind will be elevated. To fix all the world, to connect all of the worldliness to the divine. But how is that done? Through the vehicle of this nation, first of all, living it and manifesting that in the land of Israel. So outside of which, the Torah becomes this, like I said before, this external coercion that you have to do and live in the Yirah. What the rabbis say. If it's Hashem b'Yirah, that's outside the land of Israel. The Sefer Haridim, one of the books of he was in Tzfat, buried in Tzfat with all the, next to the Rizal and all the in Tzfat. He says, Rav Askari, it's a book of, he collects the laws, the mitzvot, divides all the laws of the commandments. And he says that one should be in a constant state of joy by virtue of the fact that your presence in Eretz Yisrael. Every moment there's constant commandment, there's constant level of connection to God, closeness, proximity. Being in Eretz Yisrael, one should be in constant joy. The smoach tamid, the simcha. So again, this idea, this concept of the joy in Eretz Yisrael is the most natural thing. It can be, you can get to levels of joy outside maybe, but it's like against the tide. You have to overcome all the obstacles, all the fact that you're separate and scattered and separate from life. How to feel the joy in spite of that. But in Eretz Yisrael, it's this natural, not there, it's like the limbs, we mentioned, the limbs separate separated, God forbid, in a hospital, the kidney machine, the lung machine, everyone being resuscitated, and you say artificially. Here, the flow of life, the neshama comes to Jewish people upon the land, and then all of life and the joy, the simcha of being normal, being full of life and healthy. The ability to get to this level, maybe before that, when Torah is seen, because of the extension of that exile reality, and thinking that that's what Torah is, that's the full picture, that's what there is. Judaism, there's religion, and there's life. There's, like I said, Christianity, separation, there's vows of celibacy, not to get married, not to have... You have to be as if spirituality, if you seek spirituality, you have to minimize your contact with this world, the physical world. That is, Rav Kook writes about that in the Rosh Tshuva, how one of the main obstacles, there's many obstacles to doing tshuva, one of the main obstacles in this generation, especially the time of the Gula, like I said, there's special souls, we'll talk about their sources. The time of the redemption is not just some, time comes and God says, I'll bring you back to Israel, whatever. There's a different reality. People now, because the goal of redemption is not just being transferred to a different geographical location. It's a different level of life. This, like I said, this infusion of life, this transcending grandeur and supernal light is now infused in us. The different souls, they're ready for that. Like I said, the demand, and will be satisfied with nothing less than that understanding and living according to that new level. They live on this high level, they have this super energy, and they're not aware of how that's connected to these books or these laws, so they reject. So they run away. He says that's one of the big obstacles that prevents or causes people to reject or not to do tshuva, is this amusag shel tziyur tshuva, this image which is connected, associated, not truthfully, in other words, improperly associated with what? Tshuva, religion, with what is it connected? What do you think of tshuva? What do you think of? Dildul nefesh, im chulsha v'rifiyon v'anamachat achim, with the lowering of the soul, with weakness and diminishing, lowering of life. Like I said, religion, less and less life. And if you want, I want to be alive, and you tell me just be religious. So that causes this rejection. And we mentioned before once how the rabbis forewarned us at the time of the redemption there's special souls, and it says the generation of the Mashiach is, if you remember this, is good on the inside and evil on the outside. There's an inner core that is very great and amazing and energized, so to speak, idealistic, and the outside, behavior, if you judge by the behavior, very let's call it not religious, not good, negative, evil. So how does that work? Why, if it's so good on the inside, why don't you be good on the outside and behave accordingly? So again, there's a lot to talk about, but this mentioned what we just said before, how this, because of, not in spite of, because of that super level that is demanding more greatness, values, ideals, and goodness. And Judaism is served to him like it's something small against life. So keep your Judaism, keep it for yourself. Let me be alive. I want to be alive. Come back to the land, build the land, whatever it is, Zionism, different. They want to build. Instead of explaining to them and showing them and revealing But Rav Kook over and over again repeats the necessity to reveal and expose, not to make up something new, give them explanations, philosophy, to expose the bigger aspects of Torah. There always was. It wasn't necessary. The child is not ready for it even. But now it's a necessity. You can't leave the university student at the level of his perception of godliness and Torah wisdom on the kindergarten level. Thinking just teach you what to do, how to do it, now you can grow up and everything else. No, the higher level is the revealing of the greater, like a davar gadol, the big side of Torah. And that's what we have to return to and study. And that will bring you, and then you can get to this love and appreciation and the grandeur and all that comes with it. And that's why I wanted to explain what we studied before about the universal tshuva. We said tshuva is not just me and my sins. I did a sin, man sins, and he has to now fix and repent and go back to that. But it's not part of life. It's something that's only after sin. We saw that no, the whole world is returning. What Rav Kook writes in chapter 11, Arot Tshuva. The world was created, the very act of creation. We saw, remember the picture? The world, so to speak, descended from godliness, from the divine ideal, his goal, into worldliness. And our whole goal is now to return the world to its full grandeur, to get rid of all those obstacles that are block and hinder that full revealing and expression of godliness, of light, of goodness, of holiness, of truth, of absolute good, the super vitality in this world. Every sin blocks that. We said the act of creation, we said already blocks that. Remember, the first block was the act of creation. It's already separate, so to speak, distant from God. Our goal, Adam Rishon was supposed to bring the world up. Not only did he not do that, but he put another block. And when we're born, we add our own sometimes blocks and other more distancing the world. And our usually tshuva talks about you and your sins, but it's beyond that. Even if you fixed your sins, you don't have no sins. You have to work towards and participate in this super level of connecting the world, returning the world. That's why we said it's tshuva. It's returning the world to what it's meant to be, what it will be, what it really is, the beauty of the world. And participating in that brings such joy when you understand that. It's not just me and my sins and whatever, and it's an awful thing, it's a painful thing. The joy of tshuva, that can only come when you understand the significance that we'll talk about. I want to get to the letter of Rav Kook, an amazing letter when the rabbi asked Rav Kook, how can we serve God with joy and gvura, with courage, with strength, and overcome all the obstacles? How do you serve God with joy? What we're talking about here, joy, learning with joy, and so the Eretz Yisrael being with the joy. But how can we get to this level? So Rav Kook has do I have it in English even now? A letter of Rav Kook that discusses it. We'll talk about, hopefully we'll see that next week, to prepare us, like the Ezra said, to learn we read the Kitavo, to know about the curses that were because we didn't serve God out of Simcha. So before Rosh Hashanah, we should come back to the service of God out of joy. So hopefully we'll learn what Rav Kook says, how we can serve God with that joy, B'ezrat Hashem.